Here is just a talk, a brief talk that elicits a long discussion. Enjoy it. In the first of this brief talk that we'll be listening to now and then, we'll be talking about language. We'll be looking at the use of English language. Let's narrow it down to that point. As a background, my name is Victor Nwora Aghadi. I started my interest in English language many years ago when I was in high school. I remember I was in my class 2 then. We used to have 5 years of high school in Nigeria in the 70s, and I was in my class 2 when we were having this English class, and our teacher then was the now late Mr. Obeka. He started teaching the Oxford English the way no other person has taught it to me before, starting right from the beginning of the chapter. And there, there were issues that had to deal with phonetics. Yeah, grammar, syntax, phonetics. I never knew anything about phonetics, but one of the bright chaps in my class, his name is Obiora Anyeka, I remember. He walked up to the board and transcribed something, phonetically, wrote the phonetic symbols of something. And, I felt challenged, naturally. Right from my days in elementary school, I've always wanted to be seen as one of the best, if not the best, pupil in English language in the class. I gave it to all those guys who were gurus in mathematics. I never even tried at all. Not that I didn't know it, because when I did college program here, I realized I could make straight A's in math, but I never tried in Nigeria because I was told I didn't know math. Well, that's another issue on its own entirely. So I focused on English. And when this young man got up and transcribed something, and it sounded Greek to me, I said I had to learn this. So the school was what is called a grammar school in Nigeria. Here in America, grammar school is slightly different. It's not up to the grade of the average high school. If you want me to put it that way, but that's debatable though. But grammar school in Nigeria is like a school that is tailored after the British system of Cambridge way of learning the English language and others. So the emphasis was on English language in my school. So I went to the library and picked up all sorts of books that had gathered a lot of dust on phonetics and all that. That's how I started learning these things on my own. We had no teacher for it, because after Mr. Obeka did that with us, the other teacher that took over never bothered to even look at that part of the Oxford English. And that was how I started learning oral English. And I left high school, and a year after I started working in Radio Nigeria as a broadcaster. Well, did all that job for about 22 years. So every dime I made, or every kobo I made in Nigeria, was either from writing or speaking English. Well, I did some work in the studios too in Igbo language, and my first language, which is Pidgin English, because that was the language I started when I grew up in Kwale, today's Delta State. I lived with kids from all over Nigeria, and our lingua franca then, a common language, was Pidgin English. That's how I learned to talk. So I later realized I could make use of that, translate scripts, and do things for the producers in the ad agencies, and also do voiceovers in Pidgin English and do it really nice, because things like that never really leave you. So I also Igbo language, which I learned in high school very, very well. I realized I could do a lot with it, and at a point I was made the supervisor of Igbo service on the then RN3, which is now a Bond FM. I actually led that service for about 2 years. So I sharpened my Igbo skills too. So I'm a little bit of an expert in languages, if you want to say that way, because I did every language I have spoken I have spoken professionally. And now a lot of my colleagues are bothered. They're bothered that English language is not being spoken properly anymore. And this is something that did not just start with my generation. It's been happening. You know, I remember then when I got back to the village in Nigeria, to my home village, older people used to complain that they wouldn't even understand the Igbo, which is our language that was being spoken on radio. They said, well, I don't understand what these kids read when they read the news. I don't know. They say they speak Igbo. I don't understand what they're saying. So I've realized that this is an issue that has to do with is the generational thing. And then I've done some studies on it, and I've dwelt on it, as somebody who considers himself an expert too, to realize that language is very transient, It just keeps changing. So when you start getting really bothered that language is not spoken the way you used to know it, it's just a sign that you've been around for a while, Yeah, you just give God the glory, right? Because it keeps changing. I remember my own Igbo language, the way it was spoken when we all were brought back to the eastern part of Nigeria because of the Civil War, is not the way it is being spoken now anymore. In my language, in my village itself, if I get back now, I seem to sound archaic. Actually, almost archaic to a lot of the people, of my little nieces and nephews. They're like they don't understand what kind of Igbo I'm speaking anymore, because over the years I've not been part of the transition, part of the evolution in that language. I disconnected when I went to Lagos. I spoke mostly English and the Igbo that I knew before I came to Lagos, and then continued living here in the United States. Now we're all fired up about our Igbo language, but we're probably just speaking what we learned. We're not part of the evolution. And so it's happening to Pidgin English, which is a language of its own, which I don't like anybody deriding for any reason. It's not adulteration of English language. It's not broken English. Broken English is when you speak English in fragments, right? You pick words like I go, and then you make a sentence out of it and add a little bit of your own language. Pidgin English is a language of convenience. The Portuguese came, and of course they will say things like, I'm a Portuguese, and then the native African will hear Potoki. So today white people will be called Oyibo Potoki, right? That is the language that has been used by our forefathers, over the years, to their understanding of that guy that came, who had different color, who had different ideas and stuff like that. Okay, and it's evolved into a language over the years. So many other things formed from the interaction the black man had with the African had with the colonialists that came to form that beautiful language. So we shouldn't deride it when people use it, or but when you want to speak it with pride, because that is a language on its own. I could totally understand how Oyibo, for instance. I personally do understand that when the slave raiders came initially, let me call them by that name, they picked a lot of Africans from the Bight of Biafra, and a lot of them were Igbos, people from the Igbo extraction. Well, today we have Anambra State, we have all those names of cities, we have Imo, Abia, and all those states in the east of Nigeria, and all over Nigeria, states, local governments. So people could say, I am from this town, I'm from Onitsha province, but I'm from Abatete and stuff like that. I'm from Idemili North local government. But in those days, it wasn't like that. So if the guy that came from across the seas asked anybody, come here, who are you, or whatever, I would say, Abumonyibo, and then the white man will understand Oyibo. So next time he sees him, he will call him Oyibo. And then the African will call him back Oyibo, and that becomes Oyibo that we know today. So Oyibo, Potoki, so it is something that has come from experience all over the years. So we can't just deride it now and say it is broken English. It's not broken, it's pidgin, it's a language of its own. And so it is with Igbo language too, and other languages we have in Nigeria. We have so many of them, 340 or 50 or whatever, different languages. I'm not talking of dialects now. So let's get back to English language real quick, because I'll be over in a moment. We have had series of evolutions in English language. We know the Chaucer poems, and we know the Shakespearean English, all right? And we know that if you bring an Englishman of the 18th century, even 19th century, early 19th century, he probably will not understand what his great-grandchild is talking now. It has to come up. Yeah, because I've been to London and understand that the English language the kids speak on the street is different from what the Queen speaks. And it keeps evolving every year, every moment, because the influence of other cultures are affecting that language. And it happens too elsewhere. So if it happens to a broadcaster or a young man in faraway Nigeria that's far away from London, you don't consider him an idiot or an illiterate because he's not speaking it the way it's spoken on the streets in London. Because even on the streets in London, there is no standards anymore. So things are changing. It's because of the influence of American way of speaking English and everything. And even right here in America too, we have people who have the different ways of expressing themselves. And it's a thing of pride, because it's something that derives from a long session, a long history. You understand? So we just have to be very, very careful when we make these distinctions, when we deride other people because they say things and we think the sentences do not conform with all the verbs and syntax and the punctuation and everything laws that we know. They have their own syntax. Every language has a syntax. That's right. So this is a very big discussion, and you can say anything you like about it, and we'll continue this talk because I have to answer a phone now. Thank you. I'm Victor Nwora Aghadi. Talk to you later. Bye.
Now, fire. Tell me what you think and bring me back to that seat real quick. It's been just a talk with Victor Nwora Aghadi.